Well, thank you very much, Craig, and thank the Heartland Institute for the opportunity to be with you this afternoon. Now, what you just saw in that remarkable video was the flow of money originating in Russia, from which it is then moved to the offshore company in Bermuda, an outfit for a long time went by the name of Klein Limited. Klein Limited, according to congressional investigators, is nothing but a shell company created by another Bermuda-based law firm which has long-standing ties to Russian energy interest. Klein Limited, interestingly, never had a website. Why wouldn't a company in the 21st century not have a website? Answer, in all likelihood, they don't want to draw attention to themselves. From Klein Limited, which has recently renamed itself Sea Change International, the money then goes to two foundations in California, San Francisco, California, one by the name of the Sea Change Foundation, the other by the name of the Energy Foundation. And that money doesn't just go from there to smaller groups in Virginia. They also go to two key players in the environmental debate. One is the Sierra Club Foundation, a sister organization of the Sierra Club, the other to the Natural Resources Defense Council, NRDC. What the Sierra Club and the NRDC have in common is that they are vehement opponents of U.S. Fossil fuels industry, regularly railing against fracking, the withdrawal of the U.S. from the Paris Climate Agreement. They are in opposition to the construction of oil and natural gas pipelines. In some cases, for instance, in the northeastern U.S., they have been successful in blocking natural gas pipelines. Anything having to do with improving the U.S. energy infrastructure are things to which they are vehemently opposed. Now, how much money are we talking about here that goes from the Energy Foundation and the Sea Change Foundation, both of which are self-styled environmental foundations themselves, though they are pass-throughs, they don't have to publicly divulge from whom they receive their money, but both of them are vehement opponents of U.S. fossil fuels. And how much money have they been sending to the Sierra Club Foundation and the NRDC? Well, according to congressional investigators, between 2010 and 2015, the Sierra Club Foundation received $18 million from the Sea Change Foundation, NRDC $15 million from the Sea Change Foundation. Now, the money has been duly laundered, to use a very appropriate term in this case. So you could say, well, do the ultimate recipients of this money really know where it originated? I think the answer is they know what they want to do, what they want to know. After all, why ask a question when the answer might prove publicly embarrassing? In other words, why bite the hand that's been feeding you when you have been dining quite well? So you can see here that we have, thanks to the work of congressional investigators, established the money trail from Moscow to Bermuda to San Francisco to two of the most powerful U.S. environmental activist groups. It doesn't take a tremendous amount of imagination to figure out how long, what exactly the agenda is here. Moscow has an interest in condemning U.S. fossil fuels exploration and development simply because Russia itself is a huge producer of fossil fuels, particularly oil and natural gas. Of course, the irony of it here is that the environmental groups, which would have you believe that our use of fossil fuels is putting the planet at peril, are themselves receiving money from another country, which also is a world leader in fossil fuels. So in addition to the money trail here, there is something else at work. Recently, the House Science, Space, and Technology Committee issued a report on Russia's very adroit use of U.S. social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, used by an outfit in St. Petersburg, Russia, which goes by the innocuous name of Internet Research Agency, reportedly run by an oligarch, crony of Vladimir Putin's. What do they do? They post messages on social media outlets, messages over 9,000 of which are attacking fracking, attacking the construction of oil and gas pipelines, attacking the construction of LNG, liquefied natural gas terminals, and any other improvements in U.S. energy infrastructure, also condemning the United States for its withdrawal from the Paris Climate Accord. Now, why would the Russians do this? Well, the question almost answers itself. The Russians take very seriously President Trump's pledge to make the United States globally energy dominant. Why? The U.S. is now the world's largest producer of natural gas, having surpassed Russia a couple of years ago. It is well on its way within a couple of years of becoming the world's largest producer of oil. The United States is now a very serious competitor to Russia, as well as OPEC in that particular area. And this points to a unique vulnerability that Russia has. Unlike the United States, Russia does not have a diversified economy. Oil and natural gas make up about 40% of the Russian economy, their gross domestic product, and over 50% of its exports. Russia is a gigantic country, over 6 million square miles, and the country stretches out over 11 time zones from Europe all the way to the Pacific Ocean. Yet the Russian economy is about the same size as that of South Korea. And how big of a country is South Korea? It's about the same size as the state of Maine. This points to the unique vulnerability of Russia. Whatever geopolitical interest Vladimir Putin may have, he has to have a sound economic basis with which to finance that. And with the United States now a world leader in fossil fuels, this is rightly seen by the Russians as posing a real threat in the future, one that they take absolutely seriously, as well they should. From the Russian standpoint, this is just practicing good old-fashioned statecraft, something that Vladimir Putin, a former KGB agent, understands very well. You're using environmental groups to sway public opinion in not only your big economic rival, but more importantly, your biggest geopolitical rival. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, it's not just the Russians. Earlier this summer, the House Natural Resources Committee launched an investigation into the long-standing, very cordial relationship between the People's Republic of China and the NRDC, Natural Resources Defense Council, the same outfit that's on the receiving end of money that originates in Russia. The committee has found out that, and pointed out that this relationship goes back over 2 decades and consists, among other things, of regular visits by NRDC officials to China, where they meet with government and Communist Party officials on a regular basis, something that the committee pointed out would not be taking place without the approval of the Chinese government. Now, why would the Chinese be interested in the NRDC? After all, their situation is vastly different from that of Russia. Unlike Russia, China, owing to its unfavorable geology, is not a major producer of oil and natural gas, and no doubt probably never will be. But it is a major geostrategic rival to the United States, whereas Russia is actually a declining power, one with a stagnant population and not a diversified economy at all. China is a rising power, and the Chinese take a very long-range perspective on everything, which is what you would expect from a culture that's over 5,000 years old. Now, if you look at the relationship between the NRDC and China, two things pop out at you. One, the NRDC has been a very reliable public relations outfit operating to the benefit of the Chinese. They will boast to the world about China's wonderful environmental stewardship, pointing out, for instance, that China is a world leader in fisheries, something that would come of great interest to certain parties. And at the same time, the NRDC is conspicuous in its lack of any real criticism of China's policies, particularly with respect to its pollution. The cities in China, what have you, are notoriously dirty, and China's environmental record is disgraceful. Also, the NRDC has been a huge critic of the U.S. Navy. It has sued the U.S. Navy on multiple occasions, claiming that its sonar and anti-submarine exercises in the Pacific Ocean pose a threat to marine life and the surrounding environment. You will find no such criticism by the NRDC of the Chinese Navy's construction of artificial islands in the South China Sea, which have destroyed the local habitat of God knows how many creatures, coral reefs, and what have you. Now, in closing, whatever differences there are between China and Russia, the two countries do have one thing in common. They both see in American environmental organizations a ready-made fifth column, one that is eager to participate in condemning U.S. use of fossil fuels, one that is perfectly willing to work with some of the worst polluters in the world and with governments which are actually extremely hostile to the United States. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the real collusion. We have learned very little about it, but we're going to find out more about it. I want to, by the way, before I go, I want to congratulate a reporter who is here with us today from the Daily Signal. His name is Kevin Mooney, and Kevin is the one who has done a fabulous job in exposing the collusion with environmental groups, both by Russia and China. And with that, thank you very much.